It's always awkward when there's a camera in front of your face and you're expected to talk to it like it's a person. Luckily, I got my first shot at practicing this when I was an anchor on our high school's television show. Check out that blonde hair. Anyways, I really honed this skill as an on-air reporter where I had to talk to a camera in public, and that was absolutely terrifying.
Yeah, and I was an on-air meteorologist at a television station, so I talked to thousands of people every night. So, I was in a studio just with a couple of cameras in my face, but I knew in my head that I was talking to thousands of people. So that can be intimidating.
So today we're here to teach you all the tips and tricks, whether you want to be a vlogger, an on-air reporter, a meteorologist, a publicist, whatever it is you want to do on camera, these tips are going to help you get better.
Tip number 1, practice. Ever since I was a little kid, I knew I wanted to be a meteorologist. So I remember even like in high school, my friends used to make fun of me for it. I would stand in front of the mirror in my room and I would practice giving weather forecasts, just looking at myself in the mirror, just practicing, because I knew that's what was going to get me better. And even when I was on air, in my spare time, in my first year, I spent countless hours in the studio by myself, and I'm sure the people back in production and engineering were really sick of me because I just wanted to keep practicing and going over it and over it and over it, because it is very true that repetition really works, and practice really does make perfect. Cliche, but true.
Yes, and you don't need to have fancy television equipment or camera equipment to practice. Cell phones are great. Cameras are great. Any chance you get to be in front of a camera, practice. Watch it over. But that leads to our second tip, which is don't be too self-critical. You really need to be able to understand that nobody speaks on camera naturally. I mean, maybe there's like a person, I don't know if you're out there, hi, but you really do need to practice. But you also need to get out of your own head, because if you, every single time you mess up, if you stop and think you're a failure and think that you can't do it, you're just not going to move forward. It's like with anything else. Many of you maybe play sports out there. You're not going to hit a free throw every single time if you don't practice. But also, you know how important it is to have positive self-talk. Talk yourself up in your head. Believe in yourself. Have confidence. No one is awesome the first time they do it.
Yep, I can't tell you how many times I've heard people say that I work with, I don't like how I sound or I don't like how I look. You got to get over that. You got to get out of your own head, because everybody is self-critical, and that's just the truth of everything. But you're gonna just have to get out of your head when it comes to seeing yourself and hearing yourself on camera, which kind of leads us to our third tip, which is basically don't try to be somebody that you're not. I had to kind of learn that the hard way when I was on television, because people would always ask me, like, well, what's your thing, or what's your shtick, or what's that funny thing that you do?
Especially as a meteorologist, right?
Right? And I didn't have one, and for the longest time I struggled with that. But that was okay, because over time I was just I was like, you know what, I'm going to be exactly, or try to be exactly who I am in person off camera as I am on camera. And I think over time people really came to truly appreciate that, and that really helped to build my credibility. So it doesn't have to be that you're on television, but credibility is an important thing. So, even if you have a Facebook page, or you're doing videos for Facebook or YouTube or whatever you want to do, I think that credibility is important. And if you are yourself, people are going to know that. People will see it.
Yeah, and I have a similar story. When I was an on-air reporter, I think you could probably hear it right now, I have a nasally voice. I kind of talk like a valley girl sometimes, and I was critiqued for that from people higher above, and I had almost sought out a voice coach for a while. I kept trying to have that anchor voice where you talk in patterns and you go up and down, and it just really came off as forced and unnatural. So it's okay to be who you are. You really have to embrace who you are, and you have to own it. You are the only one who can be you, and the more confident you are in yourself, the better you're going to come across, the more real and authentic you're going to seem on camera, and that's what you want to do.
People can pick that out.
Oh yeah, definitely. And then our second to last tip number 4, is to pretend you're talking to an old friend. So this one, we're kind of asking you to get out of your own head and remember that there is a camera in front of you, and that is awkward. But sometimes when you think about how you're talking or who you're addressing, a nice way to think of that is to think of a friend. Picture a friend in your mind. I had a good friend who was a great anchor, and his advice was was, he told me every time he sat down to talk to the camera, he pictured his grandma. And I just thought that was the sweetest story, but also such awesome advice because, number one, it takes away your nerves, and number two, it helps you speak in a way that is respectful and kind and thoughtful because you are picturing that person right in front of you.
Yep, I would picture one of my parents or one of my best friends or even my grandpa when I was in front of a camera because you want it to be as conversational as possible. It doesn't want to be, you don't want it to be forced. You know, you want it to be real. You want it to, represent your authentic self. So if you can imagine, if you will, talking to somebody that you love or a good friend or anybody that you know or trust, it's really going to help out your presentation.
Yeah, and one other trick to do that is to just do some visualization exercises before you sit down in front of the camera, to maybe write out some notes of what you're going to say, but then to just, again, really bring that person to the front of your mind before you speak into the camera. And now we have our last tip, which is practice. I know we said that first, but as true storytellers, we're going to come full circle, and we're going to tell you all to practice. Again, it is not easy. At least, I guess I can only speak for myself, but I know that having a camera in front of your face, especially as Kyle mentioned, when you're in a television studio and there are thousands of people potentially on the other side of that camera, it can be so intimidating. Yep. And so the only way to get better is to practice. Mm-hmm. I can tell you so many stories of when technical things went wrong, or as you might imagine in live video, when you're out in public, somebody's like waving behind the screen, and you have to keep going, and you have to have that confidence. And the only way you get that confidence is just doing it over and over and over. I'm going to go back to the sports analogy, or any physiological thing that you do. You get your body becomes rote, like it just does it, right? And so if the same thing with talking to a camera, the more you practice, the more you're going to be comfortable, and it's just going to become like second nature. But it's not going to be the first few hundred times you do it.
Yeah, definitely. And in that practice, once you have that repetition, you're going to find yourself, getting in front of a camera, and sometimes you'll fumble over a word, or you might say something just a little bit off of what you had, originally meant to say, but that's okay, because videos can take a long time to do, and every time it's never going to be exactly perfect. And if you're okay, and if you can roll with it, and if you've practiced enough, and you can get through those small little mistakes, people won't even notice. And I like to imagine that every time I do a video, it's live, because I think that extra little bit of I don't like, maybe it is pressure, but you know what? I can't start over. I made a little mistake, but I'm going to keep talking, and that is more natural in the end.
Great advice, Kyle.
Yep.
Thank you. That wraps up our tips for speaking on camera. If you like these tips and you want to see more, go ahead and follow our blog on YouTube. You can find us on Facebook at Home Place Creative, where you can find more of these tips, strategies, our vlogging, our blogging, our podcast. It's all there. So thanks so much for joining us, and follow us on social. Thanks.